This morning at the gym, I was with my buddy and we were talking about the topic of purpose. And it's something that intuitively I think about all the time, and most importantly, you're thinking about right now. And I really wanted to bring some light to the topic and share my own kind of perspectives as well as kind of a philosophical standpoint in terms of how we can determine a life's purpose or even just know if we're on the right path of finding our purpose. By all means, before I get into this video, I am still searching for my purpose, and I believe that purpose is something that we never achieve. It's something that we go through our whole life experiencing and working towards. Now, let me share this perspective with you, okay? First, you need to ask yourself, am I living in alignment with the highest version of myself? And you hear this all the time, and you're probably wondering, like, what does that mean? And what that really means is, are you really living out that lifestyle that you want to live? And the reason why I put this at the beginning is because I want you to determine what your lifestyle actually looks like. Okay, what are things that you want to achieve in your life? What are things that bring you light? And for some people, they might not even know what this is. And to be honest with you, that's the best position to be in. And one of the biggest things that I did in my experience was to look back in my past. What was that kid version of myself searching for? When there was no parameters, no guidelines, no pressure from society or money or status. And so when you think of that, a kid really has nothing. The sky has no limits to a kid. A kid wants to be a policeman. A kid wants to go be the next Superman. And he's so determined to reach that level. And you're asking yourself, probably, why is that? And I'm going to explain that to you. Because he had nothing else, no resistance in his life, because the only thing he listened to was his intuition, which a lot of us don't do. And so if we want to dissect this problem and help you search for purpose, we need to really understand entirely how we're going to deconstruct our life before we construct it. Now, this framework is quite literally how I've been able to lose weight and do the things in my life, and I hope it helps you. First off, we need to talk about the topic of dopamine. Okay, dopamine is something that a lot of us neglect and a lot of us use very poorly because it's our instant gratification reward system that our brain tells us, we should do that and more. And the reason why we have this is because when we were cavemen and we need to hunt for our meals, the motivational reward system after killing the animal and eating it to survive kept us continuing that loop. However, what modern day society has given us is what I'm talking to you on, drugs, lust, certain pleasures in your life, and things that are just what I like to call artificial dopamine. And then we have real forms of dopamine where you're getting sunlight, you're going to the gym, maybe you're working on a business, or maybe you're working towards something for yourself. Maybe you really wanted to get that dream job and you're doing the actionable steps to get there. But along that way and that timeline, we are faced with adversity every single day. And that is typically where a lot of us fall short. And the thing with dopamine is most people use it in an improper manner. Let me explain this to you. The person who's going out to the bar every single weekend is looking for that dopamine hit. They're going to be social, they're going to drink, they're going to get that instant gratification to run away from much greater problems. So if we reverse engineer that and go back, we begin to realize that the person who's going out to the bar might have a fear of insecurity. They might have a fear of loneliness. They might have a fear of not having enough connection. They go externally looking for it. But the same concept can apply to that guy who's going to the gym who has an incredible physique. Because why did he get into the gym? He had an insecurity of the way he looked. Maybe he wasn't validated. Maybe he had something in his life where he was looking to achieve something elsewhere based off of an insecurity. And so why I'm saying this is because you need to understand that everyone is just running away from certain parts of their life. And when you're able to understand this, it's not going to give you this magical answer. But what I can tell you is that if you're to reverse engineer in both sides of the equation, you'll come to the root cause. Most people work towards things either A, stemmed from insecurity, which forces them to change, or they have dopamine, which is an external driver, a motivator to get to where they want to be. All right? And so why this is important is because purpose alone is not an arrival fallacy. It isn't something that you achieve overnight. Purpose is something that you spend your whole life working towards. Because I truthfully believe that the people who think that purpose is something they get to will never get there. It's like the guy who owns a Lamborghini is going to want a Bugatti. The guy who makes $10,000 a month is going to want to make $1 million a month. And that person who hates the way they look is going to want to change themselves at some point. And so the problem is that you're never going to arrive at the destination. And that is the goal of life, because the goal isn't the external circumstances. The goal is your perspective in controlling your own mind. And that's why I use the example of the guy who's working towards a positive lifestyle, delaying gratification, compared to someone who's just going for a short-term solution, which is the guy going out to the bar. And when you bring those two concepts together, you understand that both of them had the free will and they both made decisions. It's just one person took one route and the other person took the other. But what I can assure you is the person who's going to the gym, who's experiencing delayed gratification, is going to be much more fulfilled and stronger in the long run. Why is this? Because they have complete control over their mind. People who settle for short-term dopamine never get to their goals. And that is exactly why purpose is so important, because purpose isn't something you get to instantly. It's something you spend your life learning. Purpose, I truthfully believe, is masked by your own mind. And I think the person who finds a true purpose in their life is the person who can control their mind, who doesn't fall into temptation, who doesn't give up on that delayed gratification route. The person who shows up every single day and does the necessary things of what they define as their success. And so you're probably watching this video and you're probably confused right now, because I'm not giving you a blueprint or a cookie cutter answer to purpose. But what I can tell you is that purpose is something that you will find in your life. Purpose is something that you will experience. And it's not an answer. That's a thing. It's a lifelong lesson. It is a novel that never has an ending. And with that comes peace in knowing that you can achieve anything you put your mind to. And so what purpose comes down to is one's ability to control their mind, control their thoughts, control their habits, control their actions. Because that person who's going out to the bar every single weekend is the exact same person as the one who's going to the gym. They just chose different thoughts and patterns. And so I want you to ask you this question. The reframe isn't what is my purpose? The reframe is, what do I define as success in my life? Am I truthfully living in alignment with my values, my morals, the decisions, the lifestyle that I want? Because if you're content doing those things, cool, keep doing them if that keeps you fulfilled. But if you think that there's more in your life, if you think that you're really not living up to your true essence and you're masking those things, I highly challenge you to reflect inwards, to intuitively ask yourself the deep and important questions as to why you're doing what you're doing. Any problem in your life, any solution, any fulfillment, all comes down to the center core of your thoughts and your own mind. You are in complete control of the boat.